Thank you everyone for joining and welcome to our Brandwatch webinar this morning. Just so you know, if you have any questions, you can use the tab on the right-hand side and put in your questions and we'll get to them at the live Q&A at the end. And for future reference, we will send on the recording and the slides so you'll have that going forward. I guess we'll start with some very brief introductions. Myself, I'm Motherway. I'm a product specialist here at Fivetran, based in our Dublin EMEA office. So for those of you who aren't aware, Fivetran is the very efficient way to replicate data into your warehouse. So we're essentially zero maintenance, zero configuration, data pipeline as a service, bringing data from your various sources, flowing into one central location, for example, Google BigQuery. There you can sit your visualization tool, for example, Looker on top to really make the most out of that cross-functional analytics and to empower your business users. I think at this stage we have at least 100 mutual clients between us, so it's a really good partnership. So yeah, I think we'll do some introductions of our panelists. So first of all, we have Nathaniel Spawn of Fivetran.
Hello, everybody. My name is Nathaniel. I started at Fivetran. We were only 7 people back in San Francisco, and then came and opened up the European office for Fivetran, working with Looker right off the bat. Looker actually introduced us to Brandwatch. It was one of the first customers we onboarded. We've worked with Ed, I guess over a year now, and really enjoy working with them and supporting their use case, which is really interesting. So yeah, definitely looking forward to the webinar.
Perfect. Thanks a million, Nate. And we also have Des Conlon from Looker, I believe.
Yes. Nice to meet everyone. So I sit on the sales engineering side of the house here at Looker. So I worked with Brandwatch on this trial, and we worked together on building out their use cases. So I'm happy to answer any technical questions today on how Looker works and how it fits into the wider ecosystem.
Great, thanks a million, Des. And we also have Firat Teknir from Google.
Oh, hi, this is Firat Teknir. I'm one of the data specialists within Google Cloud, and I'm happy to answer your questions around BigQuery at the end of this webinar. Thanks.
Perfect, thank you, Firat. And finally, we're extremely grateful to have Ed Mancey, who's Head of Business Intelligence at Brandwatch, present to us today. I actually sat in on this presentation myself a couple of weeks ago. It really is a very insightful story, of a company going from manual sort of time-consuming reporting, transforming to a modern data stack, really enhancing the data landscape and creating first-class alignment across departments. So yeah, look, Ed, thank you very much for presenting to us today, and I'll pass on to you.
Great, really happy to be here. So a little bit about me. I head up business intelligence at Brandwatch, and a bit about the company before we go on really in the use case. So Brandwatch is the world's pioneering digital consumer intelligence company. We help over 2,000 brands and agencies, including kind of big blue chip names, make insightful data-driven business decisions. For those of you who haven't come across digital consumer intelligence before, what we believe is that it's important really to be ahead of where your market, in particular where your customers and consumers are, and we enable companies to do that. So we have the world's largest index of social media data, including public social media data only, importantly, including all of Twitter, all of Twitter's kind of fire hose and kind of back catalog, as it were, as well as news sites, kind of essentially any kind of public information on the website you'd be able to get by searching for it, we provide. And we enable that to allow companies to very kind of have at their fingertips in a fast way information about their consumers and what their interests and choices are, and then overlaying intelligence on that. So we've got our own proprietary artificial intelligence machine learning systems, which will deliver the kind of the sentiment around conversations, will pull out entities, will enable you to automatically detect peaks in a way in which you would never see before. So brands or agencies use our suite of products and platforms to be able to really get ahead of the kind of the market and to understand, to listen in to that ongoing conversation, right? So we say, if you could ask 3 billion people a question, what would you ask them? Because actually with the internet, you've got the ability to ask that question. And to talk really then about the agenda today and what I'm going to cover, and talk first about what kind of the challenge was for us and some of the issues we had. and talk a bit about how we implemented our stack. So we did all this, started about a year ago, and we've been on a journey with it and kind of where we've got, and then look at some of the impacts, some of the things we've been able to deliver kind of with our new stack. So starting with the challenge then, we want to put customer data at the heart of everything we do. So we think that we're kind of a SaaS platform, and like lots of other SaaS platforms, we know that we're every single day constantly being told by the way in which our users are interacting with our platform, how we're best serving them and how we can help them more. And that's so key really to our vision as a company, and our product development, our sales, our marketing, our engineering function, our customer success function, obviously. But that was a really kind of difficult thing to do, because we are in a situation where we use Mixpanel for our kind of individual user data. For those who don't know what Mixpanel is, essentially you wrap all the different kind of clicks in your platform in a little bit of JavaScript. And then when someone and then you kind of collect that data, right? So in our platform, you could do things like click into charts, say, or you could build a query, or you could change user permissions, or you could all the different things you could do in our platform. We're capturing that data. But Mixpanel, all the other similar tools are really designed for companies where one customer equals one person. And some of our product suite is like that. We've got a product called BuzzSumo, which you can use to monitor kind of your kind of content, right? And it's a kind of a great tool. And for its market and its price point, one customer is normally one user. But for our main kind of products, Brandwatch Analytics being a kind of the main one, we're looking at one customer being a suite of users. We've got someone who is in charge of the data in someone's account. We've got someone whose role might just be to do user permissions. We've got different analysts, and different analysts doing different functions. And what that means is that we need to understand the company holistically, right? We need to see do they have people who are doing the actions we think they need to do to keep the data clean and good? Do they have people who are doing the actions, the analysis actions, which are really delivering valuable? Do they have people who are sharing it? Do we have whatever else happening in there? And we need to understand all of that if we're going to really say this is a healthy client or not, and give them the support we need. But that's a difficult thing, because it means taking data which is aggregated at one level of the user and aggregating it at a different level. And what we're having to do before was pull it out of Mixpanel, and then also pull data out of Salesforce, because we know that agencies and brands aren't the same, and we'd be mad to treat them as the same. So we should have different criteria for success based on what they are. Different use cases have different criteria for success. Some of our clients really heavily use our alerting system to be able to find out very quickly if the conversation around their brand changes. And in fact, we have people who use us for crisis management and find about crisis through our alerts before they find out through their internal systems. So obviously for those clients, their use of alerts is really important. For others, alerts aren't important to them at all. And you can imagine lots of other ways that's the case. So we want to bring in Salesforce data to look at use case, look at company type, look at company size, look at the geography of where they're based, etc., and combine all that to deliver a health score. And what we were doing was combining all of that and then delivering an output to our kind of leadership team to say, we think 85% of clients are healthy this week, or we think that X% of clients have correctly used the new feature we've used, or whatever else. And it was really difficult, right? Because we're combining these things in Excel. We can't recut the data if we want to later. It's a really dull and not enjoyable job. I was doing it myself a lot of the time, and members of my team were doing it, and they didn't like having to pull these things out of Excel and kind of combine them offline. And the output we had was really inflexible, right? We couldn't very easily give the output at a customer level to the customer success representatives for them to really kind of deal with it. And we couldn't also choose to recut the data if we wanted to. Whereas now our data loading is much better. So we met Fivetran at one of the Join Looker events, which we just kind of went along to. Someone put us in contact with Looker, and within a few clicks, we kind of set up everything we needed, right? So we were able to spin up a BigQuery instance and kind of point our data at it. And it's very reliable. What I'd say about Fivetran is I've loved working with them as a partner. We were one of their first EMEA clients, and I've had a great you know, support from the team there. But aside from actually the kind of the great people, we never really have to think about it, right? And that's, no one gets into kind of business intelligence or analysis or whatever else wanting to spend all their time cleaning data and doing joins and everything else. You want to be focused on the fun, interesting stuff, right? Which is that how can we better understand this data set to deliver real value to our stakeholders within the business and ultimately our clients. And as I said, I think it saves 4 hours a week in producing the minor reports, and probably entire weeks when it comes to extensive reports. When we wanted to build something, we wanted to do it right, and that meant a lot of time before. So going on then to talking about that modern data stack. So we use BigQuery in the middle as our kind of data warehousing tool. And it's fantastic, right? Again, like we can just flow all our different systems into this data lake. And all our joins can be kind of well-defined, and the data is easy to work with. And it was created within a few minutes. And then it's there, and we're not repeating this work week in, week out. And then on top of that, we've got our kind of business intelligence tool of Looker. And what this means really for us are a lot of big benefits. The first one is the power of LookML, which is essentially functional SQL, that allows us to build metrics that capture customer health, and then have those be kind of well defined across the organization. So we think that we are a tool which teams of people should use. So we can define a health metric of have a team of people use this in this week, and then we can choose to aggregate that over a 6-week period and say that someone is green for us if they've had it 4 of the 6 weeks or more. So we can build that kind of metric and then see it across the organization, not have to redo it every time, and trust that if anyone's self-serving, that because we've defined it in the kind of the coding level, that it's always going to be right. And there's version support and kind of Git support and whatever else that our team use. And we're also able to deliver analysis which is previously impossible. Some of these crosses and questions were difficult, and it changes our answers. So we had this huge set of data who are our kind of alert recipients, so who we're sending alerts to within the platform. And before, we never really had the time or capability to compare that to our main user list, and to you know, compare those different data and user trends. We were able to see that we've got maybe a third more weekly active users than we thought we did, because we've got these people who are alert only users. That's kind of understanding that we actually just could not have delivered before we implemented this stack. So you can go further, and you have the same when you're kind of in my position. You've got the same analysis resource as you had before, but now your analysts aren't spending time on this kind of basic stuff. They really can go further and deliver really interesting insights and work with our various different teams to see what's going on there. So we're kind of very happy with what we end up getting there. And so this was our solution. The other thing actually for us is we've found that, you know, I remember when I was kind of going through this process originally, one of the things which we kind of thought about was, do we need to have, you know, a single solution for all these different kind of roles? And the answer we found is not really at all. I mean, from our perspective, it's like having a single solution, because it was our Fivetran it was our Looker sales rep, account executive, whatever they're called, who put us in contact with the other two and kind of spun it all up from us. So from our perspective, it's been like having one solution, but really there's been no issue at all with having 3 different things. And actually, in a way, it makes it much clearer. If I ever have an issue about our data ingestion, I know to go to Fivetran. If I have any issues with my warehousing, I know to go to Google. And if I have any issues with my kind of visualization, my analysis, I know to go to Looker. But they all just work seamlessly. So it's not an issue having a modular stack. And we also know we have the flexibility. If we ever needed, I don't think we will, but if we ever needed to change all that, we have that flexibility to do so, which is quite nice. So it's not been an issue at all for us having that modular stack. And what's more, all kind of 3 partners work very well together. So to have a look then at kind of simplifying that and kind of how it goes in. The other thing to say is that it simplifies it, and it goes in, and then it goes out to our kind of different teams, and they can all look at the same data but in a different way. So we've got 3 different examples of things that we might kind of look at here. And the data in each of these is, so I'll go back, it is the same. So what we've got here is we've got going to customer success, to our kind of engineering department and our kind of product department, different cuts of how customers are using our platform. So on the left, you can see we've got a red, amber, green, fairly basic way of looking at the customer's health, right? We've got, if you look at some of that, you can see we've got their features used, we've got their NPS scores, we've got their analysis actions, which for us really is the key thing. So in our platform, you can apply filters, you can click in and look at individual data, you can apply rules and categories and whatever else. And that's what we want to see, right? People doing analysis. And we've got new feature usage. So of our last 2 launches, how many of those have been used? And we can get all of that to at an individual customer level to say this customer here is healthy. Then in the middle, we've got what an engineering department might look at. So they're not interested in whether or not a specific customer or not is healthy, but they've launched a feature. And what we can see here is that 70% of our customers have used that feature. 99% of new loads have used it. This is how it's been used versus the previous feature over time. This is a list of the clients who haven't used it yet, etc. So they're looking at that new feature usage, but from a different perspective. And then finally, we've got sales and product over here on the right, and they're looking at these health metrics, but at a higher level. So they're saying, what is the NPS, not on an individual account, but of all our accounts. So that's a key metric for us, one of the most important ones. We've got what's the kind of ratio of features used to users, etc., which are important. And all of these things, what's nice, are defined in the same way. So I think about kind of all these people really having the same question to solve, right? Which is that has what we've done made the users I'm responsible for, the part I'm responsible for, more healthy, better, happier, and kind of more productive? And they can each take the cut they need, knowing full well that they're all speaking from the same hymn sheet, as it were, that they all agree on what the ultimate outcome is there. And that's been really great. And a lot of it just could not have been done before, really, before you had that data kind of being manually pulled. And it's great to know they're all seeing the data in the same way. And so the impact really, as we can see here, is that we've aligned product and sales with shared metrics, and that everyone can see the impact of their work. And more importantly, when it comes to, and I'm sure there's lots of other people who work in business intelligence on this webinar, the real worry with these projects is that you get vanity metrics. And for me, a vanity metric is a metric where you can see it, but you can't act on it. And the value really for us is that everyone can see the impact of their work, but also everyone is being able to be given the metrics and the data which leads them to be able to act. So I'm a customer success member, and I can see that one of my clients hasn't used a new feature yet, and I can act on that by talking to them about it and looking into it and whatever else. I'm an engineer, and I can see that a product I've launched has a high usage rate, and so I can be confident that I've gone through the right steps. I can be a leadership team, and I can see that NPS is going in the right direction, that it's high, and therefore we're kind of doing the right things. So you're able to, instead of before, where because the process is so time consuming, you're kind of forced to deliver exactly the same cut and exactly the same piece of data to everyone. When you're doing that and you've got like a single thing you give to everyone because you can only calculate it once, it's only actually going to be useful for some of those people. Whereas here, because you can deliver the same data in different ways to the different teams as they need it, every team gets the data they need to act. And some, you can see some of these use cases here again, and it's been massive for us. It's been huge. So that's kind of what I wanted to go through, really, which was just that we've had such a huge benefit in terms of the time saved by having the data flow automatically, and it's been easy. That it's been so easy to work with all 3 partners, and that from our perspective, it's been like working with one person, but in a more specific way, because I know exactly who to go to if I ever have any issues. And that for the business, being able to have that sophistication that using actual proper tools does has allowed us to really understand everything that's going on. So I'd like to ask, everyone, kind of thanks for joining. And do you have any questions? And pass back on to Finan.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks a million, Ed. Really, really great presentation, and yeah, really insightful. And yeah, we actually do have quite a few questions, so I'm going to just run straight into them. First one, I guess, is for Looker. So although the BI looks like it brought value, it seems like it could require some preparation. Did Looker help with this? So maybe Ed as well, and also Des.
Sure, so I could jump in there first if that suits it. Yeah, so we run a trial process for this from the model up towards the analytics. So we start with like a list of requirements or goals that a client like Brandwatch would want to achieve, and then we work towards them together during a 2 or 3 week POC, where we usually end up then doing a business user presentation or presenting what we've modeled and what we've analyzed back to business users and tying it into business value. That's kind of step one. And then once the customer moves forward with Looker and they commit, we then have a professional services consultancy that actually gets them off the ground to what we call value one, which is kind of their main initial use case. It might be a team in the business, it might be a particular area of analysis that they want to do. And then from there on in, we have live chat support as well to keep the channel open if they have any analytical SQL LookML questions. Because there's a lot that can be done with the platform, we try to keep them in the loop as much as possible and always keep an open channel with regards to help on that.
Yeah, what I would add to that is that while I've got a maths background, I'm not a technical person. I can't code. I can't kind of do whatever else. I've always been more of a storyteller with data than a kind of an analyst, I guess. And what was great for me was be able to get that kind of jump start. So I'm pretty handy with LookML now and whatever else, but it was the case that we were able to kind of go a lot faster than I expected, because honestly, I looked at the coding and whatever else and thought, yeah, I'm a pretty smart guy, I can have a go. But really, we were able to implement it all without having any kind of technical specialist on our side, which was incredibly valuable.
Perfect. Thanks a million, Des. Thanks, Ed. We have one about BigQuery, so actually two that are very similar. So I guess for Firat and again for Ed, so why BigQuery and what is unique about it? And also, what made you choose BigQuery over its competitors? So quite similar. So maybe Firat first, what's unique about BigQuery, and then we can go to Ed.
So BigQuery is a serverless data warehouse. So you don't worry about anything related to servers, memory. It just goes and launches behind the scenes, acquires the resources and runs without requiring any operational aspects of it. It runs with ANSI SQL, and it runs extended ANSI SQL as well. And you can launch a BigQuery environment and start processing petabytes of data within seconds, and you'll be getting your results very, very quickly as well. It integrates well with most of the tools around, and it is very easy to load and unload data from that. And there are many integrations points through that. And it just doesn't end there. You can stream data into BigQuery, so it has an interface which is unique in respect to data warehouses, that you can stream real-time data into BigQuery, and it will be able to handle that. And also on top of that, you'll be able to create views or all up cubes type stuff within BigQuery as well, which will automatically be updated. And probably the last thing is that you'll be able to do machine learning through the SQL. So by just writing few lines of SQL, you'll be able to write machine learning and do data analytics at a different level as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Firat. And Ed, do you want to chime in, I guess, on why BigQuery or why you chose BigQuery?
I mean, if I'm honest, the why was just the kind of the ease, the fact that we were able to spin it up within like 20 minutes and get going, whatever else. And then once we were in it, we never really had any issues. And from a cost perspective, it's competitive with the kind of the other solutions. So those are our kind of main issues really, which is that like could we do it in a kind of cost competitive way, and could we kind of easily make it work? And the fact that Fivetran and Looker both integrate so nicely with BigQuery was really the key for us, right? I've got limited resource. I don't want to spend my time having to think about any of this stuff really. I just want to go on and, you know, deliver some insights.
Perfect. And actually on that, Ed, we have a question. How many people are in your BI team?
So we have we've kind of changed the structure a few times during this process actually. We have in terms of the actual BI team, as it is now, it's just myself, but we have analysts in lots of various different departments, right? Now, sales, marketing, product, engineering, customer success, etc. And so really that kind of collection of analysts both exists and doesn't within the BI team, as it were, and kind of all are kind of confident at helping with this. And one nice thing about Looker is the version control, which when you've got a more disparate team is really valuable.
Perfect, thank you. And I guess this is for Nate. What are the advantages for Fivetran over Visual Studio SSIS?
Good question. I'm not terribly familiar with Visual Studio SSIS. Is that a Microsoft BI solution? Oh, SSIS, sorry, Microsoft SSIS. Yeah. So the main thing with Fivetran is that it's fully automated, and all of the APIs that we deliver are, we deliver all of the data in a really clean, organized format, and you get absolutely everything. And all you have to do is put in your username and password. Similarly with databases, we do log-based replication with the databases. So you authenticate your database, you have to enable log-based replication on all of them. And then you can basically select what tables you want to select, if you want to block any tables, if you want to block or hash any columns. But the whole process to get it set up is very fast. And then we also put very minimal load on the database. Some other systems query it much more intensively. So that's really helpful. And then we can replicate quite quickly, as fast as every 5 minutes, or in some cases every 1 minute for the newer change data. So it's really the speed to set up and that it just works. And I think that I kind of got with the visual part mixed up with SSIS, but just for their data pipeline solution, my understanding of it is it's a much more of a traditional tool where you do a lot of the configuration of how you want to model the data before loading it into the data warehouse.
Perfect, thank you, Nate. And I think this is probably for you again. What impact does source system schema change have on replication for Fivetran?
Great question. So there are different types of changes, and we automatically bring over a lot of those changes. So, you know, if new records or new rows are added, we add those rows. If rows are updated, we update those rows. Additionally, if data is deleted in the source, we have an extra system column in the warehouse where we mark it as deleted in the warehouse. And additionally, if column types change, like let's say you change the currency of a column from euros to dollars, we're going to update that automatically in the warehouse. You don't have to worry about that. If you add a new column, we can add it automatically. And we even have a feature which you can turn on or off depending on your requirements to add in new objects or tables automatically. And then, yeah, so pretty much all of the schema changes that could break more traditional tools, we handle those automatically.
Perfect, thank you, Nate. And I think this is for maybe Firat and Ed a little bit. And if we look at Google part, is Google BigQuery the only thing to take into account, or are there other Google products involved?
So when you are using BigQuery, you can only use just BigQuery. You don't need to use other Google products. Obviously, it is well integrated with identity management, so you can apply all of that all the way down to all the projects and such. In order to ingest data, you don't need a third-party tool, but you can use Fivetran and Looker type environments to be able to facilitate some of that as well. But if the data is available as Avro format or CSV format, or Park and such as well, you'll be able to move that data into BigQuery.
Perfect.
Yeah, add there. BigQuery is the only part of the GCP platform we're using for this this project.
Perfect. Thank you, Ed. Okay, question for Fivetran. How do you get data out of legacy systems? Nate.
Yeah. So Fivetran, we have a docs page, fivetran.com/docs, where we have all of the sources that we support. Fivetran doesn't, for instance, support Hadoop or Teradata, so there are some legacy systems that we don't currently have support for, but there are a lot that we do. And then we also have a functions connector. So for instance, Google Cloud Functions or other functions connectors, that's basically a platform with which you can write code to query an API or query a database. And then Fivetran has a connector to that function, and we'll take care of all of the scheduling of that function, secure management of the API secrets or the database credentials in that function, and the loading of that data in a really effective way into your warehouse. So we do have some workaround tools, but primarily Fivetran is focused on the current tools that are very popular and that are trending upwards versus ones that are older and on their way out.
Perfect, Nate, and I think this is for you again. We currently use Kabula platform to connect to our data sources and upload data into our BI tool, Good Data, after the transformations. At Fivetran, have you got a connector to CA Agile Central, previously known as Rally, and any writer data uploader to Good Data BI?
So Fivetran in general, we load the data into a central data warehouse or database, cloud-based data warehouses being the best, like Google BigQuery. So in terms of loading it into that BI tool directly, unless it has some sort of a database underlying it, we probably don't serve that use case. And then the other source that you mentioned, I don't know that we have an out-of-the-box connection again for that, but we have a number of ways of supporting unsupported data sources. So some sources will have a file storage system like Google Cloud Storage or S3. We can connect to that, pull that data into your data warehouse. Other systems have an automated email export, so it can send CSV to an email every morning. We can automatically grab that email and load it into your data warehouse. We've got the functions connector that I mentioned before, and we also have a webhooks connector. So oftentimes we have about 150 data sources that we support out of the box. We're building more every day. But if the source isn't on our docs page, fivetran.com/docs, definitely reach out for us, and we may very well have a workaround for getting that data.
Perfect. Thanks a million, Nate. We have quite a few more questions to go through, so I'll keep going. Did you have to model the data into BigQuery or just let it land in the format that you sent it over in? I think maybe Ed.
So we kind of let it land in the kind of format we send it over with. Although one of the nice things about Fivetran is obviously you can format your data as you're sending it over. So when it comes to like a date field or something, you've got some control over how that comes over. And then we do some modeling, particularly around because I see there's kind of another question who's touched on this on formula fields in Looker. So we do obviously we've got Looker has a modeling layer and we use that quite extensively. But we actually love that flexibility actually, particularly to get away from some of the old choices we might have made. So when it comes to say our company type fields, we're not like stuck with legacy ways of defining things. We've got an ability to model and remodel there as we see fit.
Perfect, thank you, Ed. And a question for Des now, sort of based on that, is how much can be built in LookML SQL in Looker? Or I think that's probably for Des.
Yeah, sure. So we can build basically anything you can do in SQL, you can do in LookML. LookML, it sounds more complicated than it is. It's just basically a way of breaking SQL into building blocks so that instead of going query by query and aggregation by aggregation for each question, you can mix and match these building blocks together in loads of different ways to answer loads of questions and just to be super scalable and minimize how much modeling you have to do. But if you look into our development layer, it is literally blocks of SQL that are then modularized. So basically anything that you're doing in your data warehouse at the moment or in your ETL can be brought in to write it out there.
Great, thank you. And going back to Tom's question here, for BigQuery, how do you manage cost control? As poorly scripted queries could quickly cost a fortune. So maybe Firat and Ed.
Yeah, we actually we fell into that issue during the trial. I think we cost Looker and Fivetran a bit more than expected, to put it lightly. I mean, you've got to be sensible of how you build things, right? That's the biggest piece of advice. Yeah, we use the cost controls, but actually that's not as big as the fact that a lot of our data doesn't need to be right now accurate. So we kind of use tables that we construct on a weekly basis and other things like that, and we think about how we do things. You know, these, like any other project like this, you're gonna get a better result at the end if you put a bit of time in the start thinking about your architecture and your how everything kind of comes together. And we think that delivers better, cleaner code and metrics and usability for the analysts, but also helps us keep the cost down as well.
So could I add on to that in respect to controls around the BigQuery side of things? If you are using BigQuery's web UI, when you write the SQL, there's a cost predictor. So it tells you how much it is going to cost when you run that particular query, for example. And the second level, when you are integrating with Fivetran and Looker and such, you can set quotas for different projects and you can allocate it how much they'll be able to burn within a given period that they have. So that's how we see our customers are managing that, if you like. So setting project, level quotas is, maintaining how much it will be using.
Perfect. And a question maybe similar to that is, how do you manage source control of the Fivetran, BigQuery, and Looker items? So Ed, maybe.
What do you mean by source control? Like
source control? Is this a question from Phil? So yeah, I'm not 100% sure. Maybe Phil, if you're still with us, you can clarify.
Integration, guys, I guess. Maybe version control.
Yeah, version control, I think.
Through versions of the modeling, but that's just my guess.
So what's nice is I alone kind of have the ability to change our kind of Fivetran account, as it were. I'm the kind of only admin on that account, but it's on kind of that point, it's incredibly easy because it takes this kind of the schema it finds from Mixpanel or Salesforce or whatever else, and gives you the ability to kind of click on and off anything you need. And then really kind of no one actually uses BigQuery natively, I guess. Like everything happens in Looker, and in Looker we use GitHub, which integrates with Looker to actually have branches and have the ability for individual people to have their fork and to work on it, but ultimately not everyone has the ability to then merge that to the main branch and push to live.
Perfect, thank you, Ed. Yeah, I think we're almost out of time. We'll get through as many as we can, but I think we have quite a few more questions. Next one from Apurv. How do you handle ever-evolving source application? Not too sure what is meant. Maybe again, Apurv, if we could just get a bit more.
I think I can answer that one. If it means like ever-evolving source applications, I think that might mean that APIs are constantly changing in terms of where we're pulling the data from. And so we have a team of engineers, large team of engineers that are focusing on all data sources that we support, and there are constant changes, and there are also nuances and bugs in APIs and all sorts of issues. So the fact that we have over 700 customers and the fact that we are preemptive in knowing if an API change is going to come out and building the connector beforehand means that all of these idiosyncrasies with APIs and all of the changes that are just inevitable and are going to keep rolling out, you don't have to think about those anymore, and it'll just work for you.
Perfect. And again, Nate, this is probably for yourself. Can Fivetran work with on-premise data warehouse?
Yeah, so we are a cloud-based solution. but we can pull from on-premise and load into on-premise as well.
Great, and yeah,
but
I'm
we
just going to
cannot
keep flying. Sorry, yeah, I know we're out of time, but I guess we'll keep flying through a few more of these questions and then we'll finish up. I guess Ed, maybe, or slightly Des, why Looker and not Google Data Studio?
Good question, I guess. I think we kind of love a lot of the flexibility of Looker. We love kind of how it kind of looks and feels to our end users, which is a kind of a big thing for us. I think of the job as a kind of intelligence function. It's really in communication, and that starts with empathy for the consumers of your data, and understanding what they understand and need and whatever else. And we found Looker to be kind of far superior in that aspect. And then it's the kind of support we got as well in terms of building it out and helping it all happen. Made the process from my perspective, because it's not the only. This isn't my kind of, well, it's my job, and my job's other things as well. It's been so much easier and better. The amount of support we've got, I don't think we would have been able to deliver in the same timeline with other partners.
Great, thank you. And I think on that as well, is Looker suitable for small businesses up to 100? Is it better for medium, large businesses? So I think Des will probably chime in as well.
Yeah, on that quickly, I mean, we're about 550 people, I guess. So we'd be medium. You know, Looker is not super expensive. It's not super cheap either. But I do think at the low end, it's from our perspective at least very doable.
Absolutely, and on that, just to kind of speak to the commercial side, because I think that's really what it's about. I think on the side of a small business with less than 100 people, you will typically still have someone who's technical to do the SQL modeling, and we can certainly help with that during the trial process that I spoke about. But I think the question really alludes to commercials, because we are what we would probably call value-based pricing. So we do what's the business effect, and then how do we price based on that. But for people who are still in the early stages of growing quickly, there are several commercial, I suppose, tweaks that we can make, whereby we do pricing on scale. We can price ahead of time for expected growth, all with the goal of bringing that initial cost down, so that brand new businesses can make the most of it too. And I think our fastest growth and probably our highest volume in the Dublin office at the moment is still coming through that SMB, that should we say 100 and lower segment of the market. So definitely.
Great, perfect. Question from Daniela, probably for Nate. I have a specific question about Salesforce replication, since you mentioned it in the slides. How do you handle formula fields? So maybe Nate and Ed.
Yeah, so formula fields are basically calculations of underlying fields that you would see in Salesforce. And so the difficulty with replicating them is that the information that we get that tells you that a field has changed, we don't actually get that on the formula field, because Salesforce doesn't give us that information. And so the best practice is to bring all of the underlying fields into your warehouse and then use Looker or whatever other tool you're using to recreate, or do it in a view in the warehouse to recreate those formula fields in the warehouse. Now, Fivetran can sync over all of your formula fields if you want to, but the thing is we can't detect when they've changed in the source. So if you know, like, oh, they only change every month and it doesn't really matter, then we could just sync them all over, and you could do a historical resync of those tables once a month or on Sundays or something like that. But the best practice model would be to recreate those in the warehouse, which in a lot of scenarios isn't that difficult, and then they're recalculated there, and we keep all of that underlying data that the formulas are calculated on fully up to date, and so that naturally gives you the formula fields again.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, initially that was a frustration for us. Like everyone else, we've got a heavily customized Salesforce that we wish was more standard. But you kind of keep making small changes to your Salesforce, or at least our kind of operations team did, and then eventually it becomes this kind of like beast, which is kind of hard to control. But actually, we found that it's given us an ability to revisit a lot of those fields in a way, and to define them as we might want to, and to be and to actually in a sense then get that going backwards as well. So defining it in the modeling layer means that if we decide the definition of a small business changes, what the revenue band is, and it moves from one to another, that's a decision we make looking at the data. We can change that in our modeling layer, and it goes back all the way, and that's actually really powerful. So having the ability to customize those fields in our BI tool is actually really useful.
Perfect. Thanks a million, Ed. Look, I know we have a few more questions from plenty of our audience, but I think we're all out of time. We're probably a bit over time. So we will get back to those questions via email. So again, look, if you have any further questions, feel free to send on email fivetran.com. You can sign up to a free trial with any of the companies here. You can see on our slide, Fivetran, Google, and Looker. And yeah, just a big thank you to our panelists, especially to Ed. Really, really great presentation. And to our audience for great questions, and we'll get back to anyone that we didn't today.